for the biggest thing has helped me in my life that has transitioned into success was my ability to forgive. How would you act out if you had a family that needed something and you had no other resources? How would you act that out? Would you turn to drinking? What would you do? And I think that helped me to then open up my heart to start forgiving. And when I did that, it just seemed like my life started taking off overnight.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
All right, folks, I'm so excited to introduce this next speaker that we have for you today. Man, we've been homies for a number of years now, and he's, and I'll let him kind of share his story, but I'll give you a little bit of insight. So Will served a number of years in the Army, and he can fill in the gaps that I miss, was a chief warrant officer, and, so did that for a number of years, retired from the military, and then very shortly after has been a baller corporate executive for a number of different companies, adding tremendous value in his respective organizations that he's been a part of. Has a wonderful family, wonderful wife, wonderful son, and our lives have been blessed just by being associated with this guy that you guys are going to get a chance to hear from. So really excited also to share some insights and stuff that he has gleaned and gained over the years from his own growth journey, from his emotional growth journey, and how that has impacted the various areas of his life that he's going to share with us today. So without further ado, Big Will! It's great to have you, man. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you. Anytime I see your name pop up on my phone or anything, hey, I'm on it. I'm a dog on the hunt.
So Will, man, can you share your story with us? Start us off and kind of give us a little bit of sneak peek behind the window here of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you so much for having me. This is one of the things that I'll mark on my bucket list to do things, and being in the midst of you and all the success that you're doing and the value that you're bringing. Yeah, so I was born in North Carolina. I was born, real humble. Parents worked in tobacco. Seasonal work, didn't have a lot of anything. Used to heat our house with the stove. When the winter came, close all the doors and turn on the stove, and we all just kind of huddled up. So sometimes I used to think back and say, I had a lot of animosity and resentment in my heart, for my father and some of the things that I saw that he used to do. He drank heavily, and there was always a need in our household. So, I said, hey, I'm out of here. As soon as I turn 18, I'm out. So I left, didn't even go to college, went straight to the military, the Army, and really didn't think about doing anything other than the Army, to be honest with you. Did that, and I was blessed to, make it through 4 combat tours, and blessed to actually retire with all my limbs and my good state of mind for the most part. Some would say, yes, my wife, she may say differently. But then when I retired, I was blessed while I was in the military to get some good education, continue some education outside the military. Started working for Goodyear, originally as their regional raw materials manager for the North Carolina area, and then eventually senior auditor, and then a business leader that's globally trained, so a global business leader. And they used to send me all over kind of the world, China, Brazil, Amsterdam, different places, where I met, and coming back from Brazil is actually where I met Mr. Super Alika, who I love to the bottom of my heart, him and his wife. So started working with them, and I thought that was going to be it, right? I said, hey, I made it. I'm making six figures. I'm flying all the way around, all over the world, first class, and all these things, right? And I think what happened is I started getting caught up in like the title, the hype in life, and thinking that, hey, I've made it, right? Because I came from nothing, and I was reading my own news, right? And then I think there were some events that started going on. Life happens, good and bad, but life happens. And it happened to us in a good way in the birth of my son, Caleb. And so it became a point in my life where I started to have to really start thinking about how much time I was putting in all these other things. The very thing that I was using, that vehicle that I was using to provide for my family, was really the very thing that was pulling me away from them. And so at that point in time, me and Alika's paths kind of crossed, and he helped me to realize, with your teaching, he helped me to realize some things that really kind of still ring true in me. And you need to focus on the things that are important. Faith, family, business, things of that nature. So I started really working on my spiritual growth and really trying to understand the language that my wife, my family needed. And it wasn't necessarily the titles and stuff like that. It was really setting ourselves up for a life of success, which is subjective to a lot of people. But success for us was really being value added in the people around us, everybody that we interacted with. But there was a dilemma. I was working 14, 15, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and traveling. My wife was working, 12, 13 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then we had a son, basically a newborn or whatever, that was in daycare from the age of 6 weeks. And there was some positive tension between us and trying to figure that out. So eventually, what wound up happening is, through your teaching, really, and Alika and the whole family that you bring together, spoke so much into me that helped me to really prioritize my focus and said, hey, at the end of the day, what do I want? I want my wife to be able to retire from her job. I want her to be mentally free, to open up bandwidth to then invest into the legacy that we're trying to build with our family. And what happened was just that. And I'll tell you something, Noble. What was so profound to me is, and again, I don't want to make it so much. I don't want to make it like I'm just ruling over you, because I tell you bring so much value. But I want you to understand that, and anybody that listens to this, is the teachings that you and Kathy and Alika would have, that open up your home and would bring us in there and just put so much knowledge into us, hour after hour, night after night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when you guys are tired, but you still pour. That stuff right there would outweigh any type of formal education that I've had when I walk into any corporate office and speak to people. Because what was happening was the EQ, that emotional growth that you planted into me, When I went and I was talking in front of these execs, these vice presidents, senior executives, they were literally pulling out pens, writing stuff down, and then coming to me and asking me, hey, what formal training have you had? What books are you reading? All these things, right? And you know, many a times I walked away and I just looked up and I said, you know, thank you, God, for putting the right people in my path. You know, so you know, Goodyear was a great job, a great opportunity, but it was a very demanding one. But I stayed faithful. I incorporated a lot of the thought process that you put in and instilled into me in our household. So, you know, you fast forward, you know, a year ago, Walmart had reached out to me and said, hey, look, you know, we're looking for some skill sets. And I had some of those skill sets, but that was the paper. When I actually sat down and talked to them, they replaced my income and my wife's income in a course of almost a year and a half. So she's retired. She doesn't have to work. Up until the time when Caleb was home, now he's in school, but they went to swimming lessons and all these things. And, you know, and that's what my work life balance is amazing. And I say that because I'm operating in the strengths, the superpowers that's been given and blessed to me. So that when I go to work, literally, I almost do what you and Alika was doing to us. So once a week, I talk to about a room of about 20 to 30 people every week, different people that come into our organization, and they're new hires to the business. And I don't talk to them about, if I talk to them about an hour and a half, but when I talk to them about 90% life, 10% business, and it connects the dots, right? So literally they walk away from that with a lot of those seeds that you planted in me and my household are now exponentially being planted to people that will never really probably ever see you, but know your name because I mentioned it, right? So again, that's kind of where we're at. You know, I'm loving life, and because I'm operating in the strengths that are easy for me to operate in. So yeah.
Well, wow, that was awesome.
Oh,
Thank you
thanks.
so much for sharing some of that background and stuff. You know, so and Will, I remember, you know, a number of times where you had to, like all of us, work through some tough things,
Yeah,
you know, some tough emotional things. And you know what I've always appreciated about you, I mean, there's a lot of things I appreciate about you, but one of those things is you didn't shy away from that stuff. You know, emotional growth is not like eating tacos for me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I love eating tacos, right? I love doing jujitsu and stuff like that. Emotional growth is not necessarily the most fun, exciting stuff to do. And I just remember a handful of our conversations where, you know, through a series of questions, you started to make some connections of behaviors that you were exhibiting as an adult, like we all do, and like we all have, as a direct result of our childhoods.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
you
yeah.
made some of those connections, and you're like, man, so maybe that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm making this decision. That's why I'm doing this. And you know, and to see those light bulbs, you know, as a, you know, as a coach or facilitator is such a great feeling to be able to see those connections. But like,
Yeah.
how have you seen that play out in your life? Some of that hard work that you did
Yeah.
a number of years ago,
Yeah.
in what ways, what aspects of your life have you really seen some of that come into to play now that you're emotionally healthier?
Yeah, so great. You look, I remember one night you and Kathy came over to the house and I bought some duck donuts. You remember that? I had them laid all out over the countertop, all pretty. And you know, I and I remember the conversation I had with Shonda before you guys came, and I was thinking, I don't know how this conversation is gonna go. Because with you and Kathy, is you guys have these Jedi mind tricks, right? And I say that because when you come in, people are all kind of like tense and then you come in and say it'll be okay, and everybody's like, oh, it'll be okay, right? And what I remember that because we talked about my upbringing, right? And the fear that I had in going back to that, which kind of manifested itself into the day-to-day, hour by hour, minute by minute struggles that I was dealing with as an adult. And I think until you and Kathy helped me to unpack that, I was continually living that fear that kind of set over my head. And I say fear for lack of a better term, but I just think really it was a comfort zone for me, right? It was just a space that I wasn't being stretched out of. So when you ask that question, so you helped me to unlock it, right? But as I built up to that, I think for the biggest thing that has helped me in my life that has transitioned into success was my ability to forgive. My father was an alcoholic. My father, in what I perceive, didn't try hard enough. There was always a need. So why would you, if you love someone, not do more, right? So I grew up with this animosity, right? Oh, I don't want to ever be like him. No. But I think, and my life was a struggle, when I was harboring all that. But it was almost like one day I woke up and I asked myself a question. I said, why would a man who says they love their family, um, drink heavily, come home, use abusive language, be physically abusive at times, just riddled in mediocrity. Why would someone that loves their family do that? And then, it's almost like God spoke to me internally and he said, how would you act out if you had a family that needed something and you had no other resources? How would you act that out? Would you turn to drinking? What would you do? And I think that helped me to then open up my heart to start forgiving. And when I did that, it just seemed like my life started taking off overnight. And what it helped me to do then is, because people by nature, it's almost like they can smell maybe like a sickness on you, a spiritual sickness. They can see it. And some will gravitate to it if they have that same sickness, and some will run away from it because they can say, hey, it's something about that guy or whatever I don't want to be a part of. And when that happens, it stunts your growth for those opportunities that are out there. Maybe it's those relationships that you need, maybe it's the, the financial things you need, but whatever, people come across your life for a reason. And so when that bondage came off me, I'll tell you what it helped me to do is wherever I maneuver now in my life, whether it's, having global conversations with executives, whether it's people internally kind of where I'm at, or maybe it's just conversations with me and my wife or my son, that's 5 years old. I am able to look through the lenses of forgiveness. So there's nothing that can be said or done that sticks to me to a point where I'm going to allow that to manifest into my life and then give it out. So I think those are some of the things that really kind of helped me maneuver, because now, I am operating at, I think, my God-given best that he's given me, right? And I evolve as I go, but there's nothing that I can say. I don't have this baggage on my back, this weight that makes me think, man, are people going to see me for a facade that I'm trying to put up, or are they actually going to see who I am? Now you get what you see, and it's very genuine, right? And that's why I say the blessing that you've helped me to really unlock years ago was operating in a superpower, right? And when you find that, there's no other you, nobody else that can be you better than you. And so it helps me, right, to really maneuver through life.
Wow, bro, that is so huge, man. Hey, I'm telling you, I think there's books right now. Obviously, man, the Bible, he talks about, forgive, forgive as I've forgiven you, or I think it's Matthew 6. Anyway, I don't remember exactly where it's at, but the power of forgiveness, and I mean, dude, that's huge. Because listen, man, that is not easy.
It ain't. It ain't. It ain't. And then here's something else is so it was twofold. So I had to learn to forgive my father, right? But then I also had to then learn to forgive myself for having all this stuff going on and baggage and this and that. So it's twofold. And forgiveness, if you're not forgiving, it is literally a prison for you, not the other person.
Absolutely. That is, man, Will, that is so huge. I just pray that the people listening to this or watching this on YouTube get an opportunity to really reflect and over these truths that you're sharing, because it's true. It's a way I've heard it said, you could say the word bitterness too, but unforgiveness or bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Right? Unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. And that's not how it works. It's like acid. It eats you up. It eats your soul. It eats your spirit. It eats your attitude. It eats your thoughts. I mean, it's unforgiveness, man. It's acidic, and it will wreck a person's life. And to the point where, and you're a great example. I'm a great example, to the point where unforgiveness got to a place in your life where it was controlling many of your decisions, and you weren't even aware of it. You did not even realize, man, why am I working so hard? Why am I working 16, 18 hours a day? Why am I working 7 days a week? Like, is your boss forcing you to do that? Well, no, my boss isn't forcing me to do that. Okay, well, so what is it, Will? Like, what's going on, right? And you seeing your gears going, like, man, so why am I doing this, right? And then when you came to that conclusion, and then when we all kind of get to that place in our life where, and I love what you said, that secondary, you said, so not just forgiving your dad, but then forgiving you, man, the freedom that comes from that. And now you can truly operate in your superpowers without, just like you, I mean, I'm just quoting you, but like without that, the way I say it is without that 800-pound gorilla on your back, right? We all try to fly with our superpowers with this 800-pound gorilla. And it's like, well, why can't I get off the ground? It's like, dude, because you've got decades of emotional baggage that you're still carrying, and you're beating up yourself, and maybe other people are beating you up, your spouse, all that stuff. When it's like, man, just, hey, 1 Peter 5:7, if it's a verse in the Bible, says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you, right? And then you work through this stuff emotionally, and man, you can get some freedom that allows you, I love what you said, maneuver and navigate through life unencumbered. Yes. Unencumbered, and you can be light, and you don't have that weight that's trying to hold you down. Man, it's so powerful, Will.
I started my PhD this year, right? And in that, it's in philosophy and I'm sorry, psychology. And what it talks about is really understanding the mind. And so what you said is very, very true, right? It's so if with all those years of things that people go through, especially at those ages when your mind is developing, your environment, things start developing in you that become very implicit, right? It automatically, your mind goes, and if you think about how we operate as people, we operate, most of our day is on automatic pilot, right? We don't really think about a lot of what we do. We just kind of do it through routine. Well, those things that we have embedded in us automatically act out. So you're right. It's like things are going on. You're having behaviors, you're having attitudes, you're having conversations and all these things that are automatically going on that comes out of you that are impacting and putting more obstacles in your way if you don't address them and identify them. And then you wonder why, you may have roadblocks or you feel like you're crazy in your mind when it's really, we all have them, like you said, but we got to start spending time with ourselves to really understand how we unpack that and plug into, like you, right? People like you that can help us. I call it like my point man, help me get through the jungle, right? To where I can really sit down, declutter, and then like really think about what's going on. Yeah.
That's awesome, Will. That's awesome. One of the other things that that I remember reading about emotional health and emotional intelligence and stuff is that, we have we begin to develop emotional injuries before we even develop the words to label them. So as little babies, right? Little babies and 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. And look, can a 4-year-old talk or 5-year-old? Yeah, sure they can talk, but do they understand what an emotional injury is? Do they understand what rejection is? Or do they understand what disappointment is or rejection or frustration or anger? They don't understand any of that stuff. So it's not until, potentially years later before you start to understand what these words were. But by then, we've already built up and accrued a number of these emotional injuries that are there that we've never dealt with because we didn't even have words to label them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But they're in there in our spirit and stuff. And it can, one of the things, one of my favorite quotes I say 1,000 times is through our podcast and stuff is pain and bitterness that's not transformed will be transferred. Pain,
Yes.
bitterness that's not transformed will be transferred. And listen, you may be as good as me at stuffing and avoiding. And I was for decades, stuff and avoid. And I'm like, hey, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm good. Until one day, boom, it started that little baby furry cute monkey that I buried in the basement for all those decades now turned into King Kong. And now I couldn't keep him in the basement any longer. And I yelled at Kathy 3 times in the span of a month. And she's like, dude, 3 things. Number 1, don't ever do that again. Right? That's number 1. Number 2, dude, you've never done this before. So that means number 3, you got issues, bro. Like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? What happened? And I'm like, wow, you're right. I haven't ever done this before. I've never yelled at you before. Like, what's going on? And that's when Hulk started to come out, King Kong started to come out, and I couldn't control him anymore. And so that's when we went to counseling, and boom, turned me on to this thing called emotional growth and emotional healing and all this stuff. And it was life-changing. And so Will, it's just so neat to hear you share, man, man, forgiveness, that's a whole nother ball game, right? I feel like, and again, I don't have a PhD like you or big baller, EQ guy or anything like that. But man, for me, it seems like forgiveness is not the easiest. Like there are a number of other areas emotionally that are a lot easier to work on than maybe the area of forgiveness, right? That,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, forgiveness is tough. And only just from my experience, I can't speak for others, although I see a lot of people struggle with it, right? Because you can hear, something I remember you taught us one time, and you said that watch how people's conversations elevate according to the group that they're around, right? So you start, I'll walk into a group of people, and you can just listen to the conversations that's having and almost know where they're at. And sometimes economically, socioeconomically, sometimes, spiritually, mentally, but you start figuring it out, right? And then if you discern that, then you are able to possibly have some good conversations with that individual, right? By asking some quality questions. Hey, let's talk. Why do you think that? And things of that nature. But I will tell you, you were talking about, even as a child, right? We learn these things, and there's a study out there that talks about infants and how infants do this thing called taking others' perspective. And what it is a infant, even though they can't talk and these things, what they do is humans absorb a lot of what they know by visually looking and listening. And so if you notice how babies and things, all they're doing is gazing, they're filtering that in. And because they don't have their own perspective yet, because they haven't developed their own personality, they literally take on the environment that's around them. And so it is, and you know, it's a study that shows that, right? And there's some argument around if it's truly doing that or not, but what it speaks to is now, even before you have the ability to develop your own perspective, you're already being consumed with poison. And it's hard because when a child is acting out, sometimes people say, oh, that's cute, right? But when they're acting out as an adult, it becomes dangerous. And so when we don't correct those, or we don't set children up for success or understand that environment that they're in, I tell you, we are setting them up for a destructive future. So, you know, it's just a lot that I think we need to really understand and take responsibility for. But if we don't make ourselves right, if we got things that we harbor on our heart that we need, you know, to address, like for me was forgiveness and stuff like that, we can't then in our own right be ready to help somebody else, because our glass is only half full, you know. So
that's right. No, that's great, Will. Great on the parenting thing, the children aspect too, and I think we're seeing that. We're seeing if we don't do a good job as parents. In fact, I just interviewed a guy maybe a month or two ago. Man, he said something to me kind of similar to what you're saying. He said if you don't deal with your emotional issues as a parent, your children will.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If you don't deal with your emotional issues as a parent, your children will. And then that gets passed on. You know, you can see those generational curses, and you know just how, you know, one family, you know, our family, we've had all kinds of issues in our family, but I can see why that stuff's generational now. Because if that generation doesn't take ownership and say, nope, stops with me, I'm going to get healing, I'm going to fix this. If that doesn't happen, well, guess what? I'm going to pass that down. I'm going to pass that down. And another thing I've heard it said too about the parenting concept is that the most important thing we can do for children is to love our spouses and create a stable, and by doing that, what happens is it creates a stable emotional environment, and a stable emotional environment for those children to grow up on. But if that emotional environment that they're in every day in a house looks like an EKG monitor, right? It's up, down, it's up, down, up, down, up, down, you know, and that's their footing. And it's like surfing on in a storm, in a violent storm. What do you think's going to happen? They're probably going to fall off the board. They're going to hurt themselves, right? But it's because that emotional environment that we're causing as parents from emotional issues that we haven't taken the time to fix and work on. And then what does that look like at 10, at 20, at 30, at 40, right? And we've all seen it. I saw it in colonels. I saw it in sergeant majors. I saw it in E7s. I've seen it in executives. I've seen very successful people that are still dealing with emotional injuries and have an EQ and emotional health or emotional intelligence of a 5-year-old.
And you know what's interesting about that, Noble, because you're absolutely right. What winds up happening is it's the dynamic of modeling and mirroring, right? Whatever you model, especially around children that are growing, they're going to mirror that. And the scary thing is, if it's bad modeling, they'll amplify that times 10. So you may, let's just say if you told little white lies in front of your child, that's going to be amplified to them being a big liar when they grow up, and it can continue to be amplified until somebody addresses it. You're absolutely right. And And I tell people, sometimes when I talk to people, I say, look, I don't know why the world is like that, but that's the way the world operates, that you have to deal with those things. The Israelites, what was it, an 11-day journey from Egypt to wherever they were going to Promised Land, but it took them 40 years to get there because they kept circling the mountain because they never learned what they needed to learn to get to where they needed to go. It is a very, very real thing.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Will, man, absolutely cannot thank you enough for sharing your wisdom with us, your insights. Hopefully you'll be a guest on the show again in the future.
Anytime, brother. Anytime you need me. I told my wife, if you called me and said, hey, Will, I need my grass cut in Colorado, I would jump on a plane. I'd fly to Colorado and cut your grass, my friend. I love you that much.
Hey, well, how about this? We would love to have you visit in Colorado. So
we're gonna make a date. I'm gonna plan that. I promise you. We're gonna figure that one out.
That would be amazing, man. We would love to have you guys here, brother. Well, thank you so much, Will. Blessings to you and your family and all the people that you're impacting, in your role. And I'm so proud of you. Thank you for your continued emotional growth and all the people that you're impacting in a positive way. I know my life is better for having known you and for being blessed to know you and have you as a friend. So thank you for that.
Oh man, thank you. And anytime you need me or whatever, I'll be there. Thank you, sir.